this video, I'm going to be sharing with you 3 spiritual awakening traps that will lower your vibration instantly. There's going to be things that you can totally bypass from simply watching this video. Welcome back to another video. My name is Aaron and I help people expand their consciousness. Now in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you that of understanding 3 spiritual awakening traps that I fell into. And there are things that if I would have bypassed, it would have made the process so much more smooth. Now first off, you might be asking yourself, what is a spiritual awakening? Well, if you're watching this video and you even clicked on something that talked about spiritual awakening, then most likely you're either going through a spiritual awakening, about to go through a spiritual awakening, or have already gone through a spiritual awakening. And a spiritual awakening in general is where you realize that you are more than your ego structure. You're more than this avatar structure that we use in this reality. We are immortal spiritual beings living temporary human experiences. And when we become aware of this, this is what we call a spiritual awakening, because when we grow up conditioned to believe that we are an accumulation of our past. We believe that we are our body. We believe that we are who, we perceive ourselves to be. And that's a very much a limitation, but it's something that we identify with because it's so emphasized in school, it's so emphasized in the magazines and all of these things about how we look, so therefore we identify with it. So in general, part of a experience that we'll have, and a lot of people will have, especially in this life, because now is the time of awakening on the planet, is waking up to who we really are. And that's one of the things about this reality as well. When we come here, we forget who we are. In a lot of other systems or a lot of other places in the universe, when you go somewhere or you incarnate somewhere, you remember who you are. You have this connection of remembrance your whole life. And for a lot of places. Here though, we forget who we are, and there's a very slow density here. There's this time and space and this linear progression. And it's part of the game of life. It's what makes this place so special, because we can go forget who we are and then remember who we are, and that's a very beautiful thing. And that's something that's happening on the planet right now as the vibrations continue to raise. More and more people are waking up. Maybe you've noticed it since like 2012 or 2000, even like since the 2000s. So many people are waking up. So many people are becoming aware of who they are beyond just the physical structure, and they're becoming aware that their thoughts correlate with what they experience. If they change their thoughts, they change their life. So it's a very empowering understanding of how we can begin to integrate with this knowing. And when I went through my spiritual awakening in 2012, my whole entire life changed. And just to give a very short synopsis of it, because I've talked about it in many videos, I was at the time working at Nordstrom's in women's shoes, and I was taking Adderall, which is the prescription drug they give to people that have ADHD. I was taking that during the day. I was going home at night and I was smoking weed because that was helping me to balance that out, because the side effects of Adderall are you don't eat very much, you don't sleep very much. So I'd go home at night and I would smoke, and then I'd be able to eat and sleep, and I would do that, and that's what I was doing for about a year and a half. And eventually I came across and I was like, I got to do something that doesn't need these things. I felt kind of dependent. And there were still some harsh side effects of it, even though I was smoking to balance it out. So what I did is I did some research and I came across meditation. And there was like black and white science that if you meditate, you will be able to balance out your hormones, you will feel better, you'll feel more mentally clear. So I was like, okay, I'm going to look into this. So what I did is I decided that I was going to meditate. And the first 2 or 3 days of trying it, not much results, but the 3rd day I did something a little bit different. What I did is I remember I was in my room, I was staring at a candle flame, because they said if you stare at a candle flame, your eyes focused on one point won't wander so much. And because your eyes aren't wandering so much, you will then be able to focus more. So what I did is I focused on that one point, and then I simply observed my thoughts instead of trying to control my thoughts, because this is also shortly after I learned and was really getting into the law of attraction. I read the book Think and Grow Rich, and I was like, oh, my thoughts create my reality. So I didn't want to think negative thoughts, and I was resisting it. So instead I just observed the thoughts as they come in, and then I let them go. Observe them as they come in, let them go. And that's when things began to change for me. I remember about the 3rd or 4th day that I did it, all of a sudden I started to feel totally different, and I had this knowing, and I made a choice that from this point going forward, my life will be forever changed. It was like this inner knowing mixed with an intention, and from that point going forward, I started to feel totally different. I went from, on a scale of 1 to 10, feeling a majority at about a 3 to a 5 out of 10, so not feeling that great, to about a 7 or 8 out of 10. I started to feel high all of the time, and from that point going forward, within a week, I got rid of Adderall 100%, and from another week on top of that, I got rid of weed 100%, and I started to feel really good. And when if I would even try to do those things, it'd bring my vibration down. I believe our natural vibration is a high vibrational state. It's just that a lot of times we use other things that end up bringing us down, and we think it's bringing us up though. So those are things that I gave up, that I then began to raise my vibration, and that's when I became aware that I am more than just this human structure. I'm a spiritual being having a temporary human experience, and when that happened, my whole entire life changed. Now, the reason I told all that story is because the first one I'm going to be talking about is something that happened after I went through my spiritual awakening, as I was going through it, and the trap that you don't want to fall into is developing anger and saying, screw the system. It's about really being balanced. So the solution to that is being balanced. So let me explain what I mean. When I went through my spiritual awakening, what happened was I was working at Nordstrom's in women's shoes. I started to learn about like how the government, like the people behind the government, you could say, some people call this the Illuminati, and I became aware that there were certain strings being pulled that was controlling different facets of our world. And it was something that I became very angry about, because I was like, why isn't this stuff taught in school? Why don't we learn about the law of attraction, or how our thoughts correlate with our experience? Or why don't we learn about meditation, and there's black and white science that shows the benefit of it? Why don't we learn all this? Well, there's a certain reason why we don't learn all of it. And I became angry at that. And I even learned that, the financial system is owned by corporations. You think that the government owns the money? Corporations own the money. So I became angry at money in general, and then I became aware of how the IRS is and how that money isn't really used. There's all these negative. Now, once again, I'm saying all this. Don't take any of this and go with it and think that I'm emphasizing it now, because I'm not. I'm just using it as an example. But once I learned all that, I developed an anger about the whole system. So I just said, screw the system. So literally what I did is I said, this job doesn't resonate with me anymore. I was working at Nordstrom's in women's shoes. I said, this job doesn't resonate with me anymore. I don't care about all of this other stuff. It's all part of the game. It's all part of the matrix. So I just said, it was back in 2012, I said, screw it. So I went in one day at work. There was a manager there at the time that I didn't get along with, because we had a new manager. This new manager, long story short, this new manager had a crush on me. I did not like that person, and once that was known that I didn't like them, they started to rebel against me, and it was like this thing. So there was like this resistance there with that anyway. So part of it was that, but it was mainly I was like, screw the system. So what I did is I said, screw the system, and I went in one day and I said, you know what, I'm not coming in tomorrow, I'm done. And from that point going forward, I spent about 4 or 5 months just living on savings and going through my own deeper spiritual awakening process. And I did not want to have to get a job. I was convinced that there was this ascension of vibration going on, and that there was going to be some way that I would fit into it, like someone's going to ask me to speak somewhere or something like that. It was like this funny idea, this romantic idea I had in my mind about how everything was going to work, but I did not want to get a job. I did not want to, then you start developing this at the time, I developed this identification with feeling different than everyone else. So I became kind of angry at that, because people didn't understand what I was going through. And I'll talk about that here in a minute as well. But in general, what I went through is I said, screw the system. I don't want to get a job. I remember getting you guys know how I talk about kinesiology, or like power versus force muscle testing? There was this lady that was really good at it. She was an older lady. She's probably about 70. She was getting really good at it, and you could ask questions and she give you yes or no's, or like what spirit would say, right? Or like what the muscle testing would say. And I remember getting a reading from her on the phone, and I asked her, I said, does spirit want me to get a job? This is after like 4 or 5 months of not having a job. And she was like, yes, spirit says you should have a job. And everything she said so far had been so accurate, with the things that she was showing. And I was like, no, I did not want to believe it. I was like, do not want to get a job. Do not want to get a 3D job, And I was feeling resistance about that. And of course, eventually, after a couple months of sitting on that, like, I don't want to have to get a job, I did end up getting a job. I ended up working at Barney's, New York, selling women's shoes. So they're doing kind of the same thing, but I was like, okay, I have to integrate back into society. Sometimes when you go through a spiritual awakening, there's this tendency to go all the way on one side of the spectrum to say, this is how I want to be, this is how I want to live my life. And when we do that, we neglect the part of ourselves that's still rooted in this 3D physical experience. Now, of course, we're transitioning into a 4th dimensional state of consciousness, so it's changing. However, having the awareness that it will lower your vibration to completely balance it on one side of the spectrum without staying grounded. I was becoming a little bit too esoteric and not as relatable in a way in 2012 when I went through that. And it was something I had to go through, because I learned that, of course I let go of a lot of things, that job and all of that other stuff. However, I realized that what I have to do is I have to stay balanced in this experience. I can't just go on a complete tangent by saying screw the system, screw my old job, screw all this stuff. And I learned a lot from that. I learned a lot from that experience, and I'm happy it happened. However, at the same time, it's something that maybe you can bypass. Stay grounded in your life experience. Understand that yes, maybe you want to find your passion. Maybe you don't want to be doing the job that you're doing, but maybe don't make the rash decision of saying screw it, who cares anymore? Money doesn't mean anything, blah, blah, blah. We still are here right now, and we're still integrated here. So this is something that's important. Just don't be identified with it, but still go through the motions, This can be fun. This can also be fun. Understand that. Like I have a lot of joy in my life, a lot of fun in my life because I love what I do, and I can live in abundance, and I can use it. I'm not identified with the money like, oh, the money means I'm like worthy. I'm just like, okay, I can do this if I want. I can do this if I want. It's cool. So just be aware of it. Now, the second thing that will lower your vibration when it comes to spiritual awakening, this is kind of like a trap, it's what's called a spiritual ego. Have you ever heard of that? I developed a spiritual ego, especially back in 2012. So what happened was I had the spiritual awakening. I realized that reality is much different than most people think. I was so passionate about learning how reality works, so passionate about learning like the correlation between thought and experience, and I wanted to share it with everyone because I wanted everyone to know that this is how you create your reality. And if you understand it, then you can control your reality, or you can more direct it in a powerful way. And I also was like, oh, there's this spiritual awakening happening on the planet. More and more people are raising their vibration. There's this ascension. I wanted people to understand, but not everyone did understand. And a lot of friends, honestly, thought that I probably went crazy or something because I'm talking about this vibration, thoughts correlate, and experience. And now it's much more acceptable. Back in 2012, when you're talking about how your thoughts create your reality, there's much more resistance from friends and family. And there were certain people in my family that was on board, but there was also people that just did not understand it. And then you also become a little bit angry because you're like, people don't get it. And you develop this spiritual ego. I remember one time I was with this guy that I knew, and he was a buddy of mine, and he was kind of going through the spiritual awakening as well. And he was kind of looking around at people at Whole Foods and was like, look at the people, they're all asleep, just like asleep. They have no idea that they create their own reality. They have no idea who they are. There's ascension going on, they have no idea. And I just thought it was funny because like that was the epitome. I was like, oh, whoa, it's like a spiritual ego. I probably have a spiritual ego. And I did. So basically what happens when you become spiritually awake is you're like, oh, my old ego goes out the door. And then what happens is this new ego comes in and it goes, I'm very superior to all of this ego stuff. I am a spiritual being having a temporary human experience. I know how to raise my vibration. And then there's this other ego that comes in that knows it all and that has it all figured out, and that sees other people as below even. It's like, oh, I'm awake, that person's not awake. The key to this is knowing everyone's on their own journey. Everyone is on their own journey. And the more that we emphasize the separateness and how people are awake or asleep or this or that, the more we separate ourselves from them. Let your life be a spiritual experience of connection. I see people that maybe are a little bit more ingrained into the 3D stuff of like duality and like, oh, the bad, the government, the president, all of this stuff. I just acknowledge it, but I don't judge them and like, oh, you're further down the rabbit, or you're not, you're kind of not here, or you're just in the matrix or something like that. The key is to drop the spiritual ego and to understand that we're all connected. And the more we emphasize the separateness, the more we feel separateness. Also, yes, some people may fall out of your life, but allow people to also come in. Understand it's part of the process. And just like a dog with like a bone in its mouth has to let go of one bone before it can get another. And in the same way, if there's a lot of things in your life that feel like they're falling apart, allow things to be as they are. Allow things to happen and know that people are going to be brought into your life that resonate at that higher frequency. But don't develop the ego or the identification that they are separate and this is their sleep and all this stuff. It's just not necessary. Instead, choose to be in a high vibration state by seeing the connectedness between everyone. You know, if someone's in your life, they're in your life for a reason. And if you need to, have the power to have discernment or something, then you can exercise that, but be aware of it. And for me, I had to learn how to let go of that spiritual ego, not see people as asleep or whatever it is. And I had to like let go of that perception of like a hierarchy, like someone's more awake than someone else. Everyone's on their own journey. At the deepest level, we're all connected. So if we judge someone else, we're also judging ourselves. Now, that's something I did that changed my life. Now, the third thing that is a trap, if you fall into it, and it was something I also fell into, is this concept of waiting. waiting for things to change. There are a lot of people right now that are waiting for this event to happen. It's called the event. The event is when the economic system is completely revamped and all this money that's been laundered by these people that run the government is going to be redistributed, and this stuff called Nasara and all of this stuff that people have been waiting for like 20 years for. They've been waiting literally since like 2001 for this, all of this stuff to come out, are still waiting. Like it's going to happen tomorrow, it's going to happen in a week, it's going to happen in a month. And what I'm saying is, I don't know. But what I am saying is waiting doesn't help. Waiting impatiently and putting everything on hold for that. You know, when it comes to this ascension of us raising our vibration, there are a lot of people that were waiting to, at some level, ascend into a higher state of consciousness. So they weren't taking action with like doing their passion. They weren't trying to help the collective. They weren't doing anything because it's going to eventually come. And when it comes, it's going to be great. But I'm just going to wait until then. The key is to know that the best way you make change in your life is by you being the best version of you right now and doing what you can to help the collective consciousness. We're not going to get saved by some ET race that comes down as higher dimensional beings. It's like, hey guys, you're doing everything wrong. Here's technology, here's everything, here's what you do. Now, here's what may happen. We may change ourselves from the inside out, raise our vibration, and then meet some type of beings that give us some high technology or something like that. That's a possibility, but it's not probable that we're just saved, because that takes away the purpose of the game of life. We are here to create change within ourselves. We are here to create the change from our own power, not from someone else giving us everything. And when we just focus on us and doing the best we can and we stop waiting, that's when things are really going to begin to change. You know, I sat around for a long time at that job at Barney's, New York, knowing, oh, it's not what I want to be doing. It's not what I want to be doing. And I was like waiting for something to happen. I'm like, why am I waiting? What am I waiting for? And so what I did is I said, you know what? I'm going to start doing something that helps. I'm going to start making videos that help people. I started focusing on the value I can provide to other people. I went from weekly videos to daily videos, and then 3-4 months later, things began to explode. And within 6 months, I got rid of that job. Ever since then, I'm a full-time YouTuber. I love what I do. And it's because I chose to take and do what I love. I chose that because I knew that that's what I'm meant to be doing. You have a purpose right now on the planet, and the key is not to wait for some external thing to happen. Start going in that direction now. Start embodying that ideal frequency. Start being in your passion, because as you do that, you will notice that you start to create a powerful momentum for you. So that was a trap that I fell into, was waiting for 2012 for this raise in vibration, for this ascension to happen and all of this stuff. But ascension is a vibrational thing that's happening within our own bodies. We're not going anywhere else. We're going to be here, but we're going to be in a higher vibrational state of consciousness. We're going to be perceiving reality in a new way. We're going to be understanding we're all connected. We're going to shift from the inside out, not go somewhere else, or it's not going to be as drastic as people think. It's going to be gradual, and we're going through it now. The trap is to not decide, to know that you can stay balanced, know that you can balance throughout this process and integrate with it. Know that the more you let go of your spiritual ego, you start to see people as connected, and as you do that, you're going to be more in the flow, more in the smooth transition, and you'll find that, yes, things happen, people come in, people go out, but in general, you're going to feel happier. And then other than that, stop waiting, start being. Start being here right now in the present moment. Watch how your life begins to change. So something else I have coming out soon is called the Shift Experience. That's going to help us shift to this new state of consciousness, to this 4D, 5D level of consciousness. If you want updates on that, it's going to be in the top of the description box below. It'll be ready in a couple months, and I'll let you know when that goes live. Also, I'm going to be doing more live Q&As on Instagram, so if you want to follow me on Instagram and you want to ask me questions, I do live Q&As very often, plus I do twice a day posting there. You'll see that right here as well. And other than that, I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to like this video if you liked it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the little notification here next to the subscribe button so you can see the daily vids that I do. And other than that, as always, peace, much love, and namaste.